So here it is, the Eastwood Pro Former Tube Bender. I got to bend a couple of tubes, and when I was finally ready and decided I'm going to tackle the bash bar, the tube bender decided to start leaking. It started leaking fluid around, I think it was like 45, 50 degrees. Contacted Eastwood, took forever and a day. They agreed, they sent me out a new piston. They wanted to send me a whole new unit, but I told them that's too heavy and I don't really need the weight. I have back issues. So I told them I just need the piston to get me back up and working, that's all. So they did, they sent me the piston, I put it in. That piston, when I started using it and was getting closer to 55 degrees, it exploded. Hit my leg, I have a nice little scar from it. And that's what kind of made me lose interest in the car. And I haven't touched it in the last 3 months just because I was hesitant to use the tube bender again. And I finally started trying it again. I played with it and I think I figured out how to use this specific tube bender. So I hope that this can help you. That way you don't have as many issues and you don't end up going through as many problems as I did with this tube bender. I started with a piece that was about 9 foot long. I made the first bend not really in the middle, because even when you look at the guide for the tubing bender, it tells you that from the actual bend, the middle of the bend, you're gonna have about 5 to 8 inches, depending on how tight the radius is. So I started a little offset in the middle. I put my tape down, and when I finally finished that bend and I said, okay, this is my center, I measured from here to the outside of the tape on this side, and I measured here to the outside of the tape. This over here is a bending gauge. That side right there, it matches perfectly with this one. So what I did is I put this on the bender. I started bending it little by little until I got the bend that I wanted. Then I marked the side of the bender. You'll see here, right here. And once I ran that pipe right up to here and put this one back into it, I had no other issues. And the bends came out exactly how I needed them. Let me see if I can put this one over so you can see. Right. Kind of. But that worked out really well for me. I did the exact same thing. I moved down about 8 inches. I put my second tape line down on this side. The bend starts right here. I'm gonna explain what that means. So like I was telling you, you measure from the center to the outside of the tape and then you start your bend. The reason I did that is because this tube bender is extremely sloppy. And if you don't put tape and you don't have something that you can clearly see where your starting point is and something where you can actually mark your center line, you're gonna have a lot of trouble. And this is what I mean. You get this thing in here, and then you put your tape flat with the front face of the die. This thing here is super sloppy, and the pipe has a lot of play inside. On the back side here, where is it? Let's move back some. Anyways, back here behind this follower, there's like a 1/4 of an inch gap in the back. So it's very hard to get the piece to be tight on there. So what I found that works best for me, you see my center line is marked and my tape is flush with the die. So what I found to be really easy, you come around the back and you just crank it up. Since it's already pre-bent, it's not going to get really tight. Once you have your die coming out like that, what it does is it pushes this little keeper, whatever you want to call this thing, it pushes it up against it. Now you can take your bolt and crank it down. Let me get my pliers. You don't have to do a lot. It's just to keep the tubing from moving. And then after you do that, you just keep on going with your bend. And I'm just showing this for demonstration purposes only. I want to show you that once it goes and it starts getting some tension on the ram, that it lines up with that mark on the other side. There you go. There we go. There we are. So that's what made it really easy for me. I made this little bending gauge, and then I put the bar. I did the first bend in the middle. I put the bar on there, then I kind of figured where my second bends would go. I put my tape, I got my bending gauge, which this upper side is the gauge for the first bend, and the second one is the gauge for the second one. After I did that, I just started marking and bending each piece, and I did have to make a final adjustment. I know in the last video that I made, I was telling you that this side over here was a little higher than that side. That is still the case, but not by much. I think it's off now by like 1/8 of an inch, which is not gonna be an issue. So when you take it off the tube bender, it's gonna spring back a little bit. Usually is anywhere from 10 to 15 degrees. So that line right there has already accounted for that amount. So when I pull it out of here, that's the bend that I need for the one side. So also keep that in mind. When you do let that out, you will see the tube spring back slightly. So if you need it further, you're gonna have to account for that spring back and go further down and bend it a little more. This tube bender, I believe it goes up to 65 degrees with 1.5 inch. And on 1.75 inch, I believe they say not to go past 55 degrees. So keep that in mind. So I got this finally dialed in. It goes all the way around, and it meets back over here on the same spot. So what I'm going to be working on now is that bar that goes from there to here, frame rail to the bash bar. But yeah, looks good, nice and straight. I think the left side might be a little higher still, but that's it. There you go. What we have here is another one of Eastwood products. This is their pipe notcher. Again, this is pretty cheap. I think this one was either 90 bucks, 100 bucks, something like that. It's not centered, and they had to put washers behind the part that holds the tube. This one seems to be pretty centered to me. I've already done the one on that side, and it worked out really well. Looks really good. Already tested it against the pipe. Let me see if I can get it to focus. There we go. So it looks really good. Obviously it needs to be cleaned up, but like I said, I tested it against the pipe and it fits perfect. These are being cut at, I think it's around either 9 or 10 degrees. Yep, so right around 9. I found out that you don't need to put a whole piece of tube over here, because then you're going to end up going through both sides. If you're making one over here on the end, you literally just need a little piece of tube on the front, and when you start making your cut through, it's going to go through way faster. This is the way the clamp goes. On the video that I saw, I know that the person was using this backwards, and they were pressing this on the actual tube, which doesn't really work too well because it starts to move. And then your tube doesn't stay centered. So when you turn it around, this wraps the tube and brings it against the teeth and locks it in place. So I'm gonna try to do this SI video, which is not that good. I don't really have a place to put it on a bench in here, so the floor is the best I got, but here we go. one thing I forgot to talk about is this washer. So I just put this on, and I did that to pull this away from the actual little threaded part that it has in there. It gives you a little bit more clearance. Without the washer, this one wouldn't go through and the other one wouldn't either. So I'm sure there are longer hole saw bits out there that you can probably buy, and it'll take care of that, but this is what I did just to get this to work. So let's take it out of the tube and take a look at it. All right, now that this thing is out of the actual tube holder, you can look at it again, and it looks really good. And I'm sure the hole saws make a difference too. These are just whatever Eastwood brought in their kit, but they seem to work really well. I did the one on this side, I did the one on this side, and all we have to do tomorrow is just cut the pipe in half and then start working on the two frame rail pieces. But that's it. This is the tube notcher.